All right, we are now joined on the Soccer Hour by Blake Aerni, the play-by-play voice of Sporting Kansas City, as we get ready for game number 1 of the 2026 MLS season, the Earthquakes and Sporting Kansas City, live from PayPal Park, 7:30 this Saturday night on KMBR 680, the Flamethrower. Blake, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
Hey, excited for another season of Major League Soccer, SKC. A lot going on in the offseason, so looking forward to an exciting season.
How weird is it for the franchise in Kansas City to be officially moving away from the Peter Vermes era? Because that was such a obviously large shadow cast on not just Sporting Kansas City, but American soccer. When I think about the history of the sport, Peter's name is one of the first that comes up. How hard is it to move on to a new era for this franchise?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. You know, when I think of Sporting Kansas City as a kid who grew up in Kansas City, Peter Vermes is the name that comes to mind for every single memory that you have of this club. It feels like every piece of success, he was involved in it in one way or another, whether he was a player or whether he was on, the head coach on the sidelines. It's going to be very difficult as we continue in this process of moving past the Peter Vermes era. But what I will say is it feels like SKC is doing everything that they can to move on quickly, because all you can do is just essentially burn it to the ground and start anew. And it feels like they have done just about that. You talk about a new general manager and CEO or chief of soccer operations at Sporting Kansas City, a new owner coming in and taking majority ownership. He was already a part of the ownership group, but now he comes in to take over a major stake of the club. You talk about a new head coach, a new training staff, so many new pieces, and a lot of players that were a part of that Peter Vermes era, or at least the back end of it, have moved on from SKC. So this is a completely new era of Sporting Kansas City, almost unrecognizable from what we've seen in much of the 2010s and a lot of that success that SKC had. But clearly that success was not necessarily carrying over into the 2020s. So it was time for something like this, and it's still going to be growing pains as we progress forward and see some of those new players come in, trying to get some of those guys to pan out. But it feels like it's definitely a step in the right direction in terms of hoping for some results going forward.
What is the 30,000-foot view on the team entering the year?
It's going to be a lot of growing pains, it feels like right now. You look at the roster that they've gone into preseason with. It was a lot of academy kids, some trialists coming in. It wasn't really a full roster. I think when they officially went to preseason, it might have been 18 or 20 players on the official roster, 4 of which were goalkeepers. So you're talking about barely filling out, a starting 11 and the bench there. So it definitely feels like as things progress, there's going to be players that are coming in. We continue to hear from David Lee, the chief of soccer operations at Sporting KC, that there are players coming. They just want to make sure that they're bringing in the right guys. So early on in the season, I mean, if you're a San Jose Earthquakes fan, I think you're probably not too upset that you're catching SKC at this time of the year, because it's the beginning of something that is going to grow. I would say Kansas City fans would hope it would grow into something really special. So it feels like right now is going to be the hardest of those growing pains, because there really isn't a huge backbone to this team yet. They haven't built an identity. But what I will say is new head coach Rafa Wicki really seems to be implementing that identity that he wants to build. He wants to play out of the back. He wants to be a team that possesses the ball and plays quickly. So from the early signs, it feels like things are moving in the right direction. But obviously, once that whistle blows, we'll really see what's going on.
How important is it to reestablish Children's Mercy as one of the most difficult places to play in Major League Soccer? Because that was actually something that I've been reading. I'm always on social media and Reddit and so forth, because as you know, that's where a lot of the great aggregate way of finding information on teams is through social media, because ESPN doesn't shove it in our faces like when Aaron Rodgers goes to the bathroom. But I hear fans say that, that getting the blue hell to be like it was should be a priority for this new regime. And from the outside, I always feel like whether I'm there for a game, whether I'm watching on TV, it still feels like it's a very intimidating place to play. But I'm sure you can speak to the fact that it's maybe not like it was in a previous generation.
Yeah, talk about those 2010s. I mean, it was one of the hardest places to play, I feel like, in those mid to late 2010s. Kansas City has a great soccer fan base, but over the recent years, it feels like there's been a little bit of, I don't know if the right word is apathy, but it feels like there's been a little bit of that just frustration from the fan base, and rightfully so. The results haven't been there. That you look at some of this, the I would say that since 2022, really the brightest spot was that 2023 or the 2022 season where SKC made that push, beat St. Louis in the playoffs, and it was an incredible run, but it was almost a flash in the pan because, to be honest with you, the majority of that season, if you look back, wasn't all that exciting. So I think that a lot of SKC fans are starting to get frustrated, have continued to get frustrated, but that fan base really is there. And you talk about building Sporting Park, which, again, talk about growing pains. It's officially Sporting Park going into this year. So, they'll be talking about, trying to build that back up to what it is. And I think that that's very possible, but it feels like what they've had to do is kind of just completely tear away everything that once was. And you look at some of even the fan base, the cauldron that sits in that, the blue hell in that south end of the north end of that stadium. It feels like even that has gone under a little growing pains. They've tried to figure out, okay, how do we make this stadium atmosphere hard to play in? How do we try and make this a place that teams don't want to come and play? And ultimately, at the end of the day, the play on the field is going to determine whether or not a place is hard to play. But the fan base definitely makes a big factor, or plays a big factor in that. And it hasn't quite been the same as it once was in Kansas City.
Let me ask you about your path to where you are now as the position as the play-by-play announcer. Is this your third year or second year?
Yes, this will be year number 3.
Okay. So tell me, what was your path to Sporting Kansas City?
It's always a fun story to tell people because I kind of got fortunate with the way everything fell. I was a college student at the University of Nebraska back in 2022 and had reached out to Nate Bukaty, who now calls games for Apple TV. He was the play-by-play broadcaster most of the years I was watching Sporting Kansas City as a kid growing up. And so
Nate is the man.
He's incredible, and he is so passionate about soccer, especially in Kansas City. He's been an incredible mentor for me, and so he got me in the door. I was supposed to interview a professional broadcaster for a project. Reached out to him, and as you know, Nate is one of the most just incredible interviews, great to talk to, and offered me an internship. Then when he got a job with Apple, Ali Trost Martin took over as the play-by-play broadcaster, who she's now crushing it with CBS Sports up on the Golazzo network. So it opened up again, and I guess they liked what they heard. So here I am now going into year 3.
Yeah, and Allie was great as well. She was always really fun to talk to, and the history of you guys always having very, very kind broadcasters continues with yourself. Speaking of Nate, have you seen the pictures of his backyard, how he sets up the little mini Arrowhead Stadium, except for the fact that he has a tree right around the 30-yard line that you have to go around if you're going to make a play across the middle?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of fun nicknames for that tree. The Refer tree, I think, is what he went with, and he painted it with the referee, the zebra stripes.
I give him a lot of credit for making the tree work, and now that's his trademark backyard thing. It's not quite what Jim Nantz has his going on in his backyard, but it's very close. As this team for Sporting kind of reestablishes and creates this new identity, who are the players that people on the outside should be paying attention to? Who are the names?
Yeah, I mean, number one is Dejan Joveljic. He is and will continue to be one of the best strikers in the league. I think that there's got to be a little frustration from him in terms of being on a team that isn't as successful as he had in LA when they won MLS Cup, but he is the kind of player he's not going to take a lot of touches to score goals. He's going to find himself in the box. If he gets 1 or 2 touches and gets the chance to put a shot on target, he's going to score at an extremely high rate. Last year, his the rate of which his shots to goals, that ratio was also one of the highest in the league. I think he was in the top 5 for the majority of the season. He's the player that you have to look out for. It doesn't matter who is around him. He's going to find his way into the box and find his way to score goals. But I think a player that is really set to take a big leap this year, who was great for SKC last year, but came in at a time when he didn't get to go to the full preseason, is Manu Garcia. He's the attacking midfielder for SKC. Played mostly in that number 10 position last year, sitting right behind Dejan Joveljic, but now I think they're going to shift him a little bit deeper into more of just that playmaking role where he can get the ball at his feet. I mean, we've seen plenty of players in this league have a ton of success doing that, where they sit a little bit deeper and they just create opportunities for the guys in front of them. And Manu Garcia, he can be box to box. He has the work rate to do that, but when the ball is at his feet, he's going to make things happen. He moves quickly, he gets rid of the ball, and then he finds those guys in behind. He has some vision that, there's times he plays balls in behind that you just don't see, and he makes it happen. He finds that pace on the wing, which is something that Rafael Wicki is focusing on the outsides of the pitch right now, is bringing in players that are quick, players that are going to stretch the field. And I think a lot of that is because that's the style Sporting want to play. They want to play quickly, and they want to get the ball to the feet of the playmakers who can then work it in behind. So I'd say those two, Dejan Joveljic, who's going to be just a pure finisher, and Manu Garcia, who's really going to be the guy who creates.
Two-part question. I'll start with the first part. What has you bullish about this team?
Yeah, it's those guys, and it's the fact that we just brought in Lasse Berg Johnson, who's a big another big name from the Swedish football league over there. He's a Norwegian international. He's a player that I think as he starts to get into this season, he's going to find himself in that true number 8 position, box to box. I think that a lot of the excitement and what has me bullish is that there's a lot of investment in this team. There's a lot of hope going forward that there's going to be players brought in, going to be a lot of excitement as we move forward. And then you look at those two players, Manu Garcia and Dejan Joveljic. If you're talking about building a team around players, those are two guys that you want to build a team around. I mean, everywhere else you look and you're like, okay, there's potential to maybe upgrade at just about every position, but those two are guys that you look at and you can say, okay, I have full confidence that any team in Major League Soccer, they're going to be pushing for that starting role.
And what has you concerned?
Definitely the back line. I think SKC's back line, last year you saw it, conceding the most goals in Major League Soccer. And frankly, it really hasn't made big strides forward. We've lost a couple of center backs, but last year there just wasn't any consistency on the back line. It feels like if there is anything to look forward to for Sporting this year, it's that maybe they can find a little consistency on the back line, but just not a lot of experience on the back line. You bring in Wyatt Meyer in the offseason, a free agent who could bring a little bit of experience in Major League Soccer, but again, he's still young. He's not a guy that's going to be, he's not a Walker Zimmerman or one of those guys. You look at San Jose, there's some experience on that back line, but not like you look at Dave Romney, maybe that has a little bit more experience there on the back line, but not really that kind of thing in Kansas City. I think Jansen Miller could make a big step forward. He played a lot of minutes last year. He was Sporting's draft pick to take an 8th overall and really wasn't expected to play a lot of minutes, but he played a majority of the season. I think played around 30 games, started mid to high 20s in terms of games for SKC, and was very solid in terms of one-on-one defending and positioning. Set pieces is where Sporting got killed last year, and I don't necessarily see that improving unless things change tactically in terms of the way that they set up. So I think that the back line is definitely the position or the part of the field that Sporting are probably the most concerned.
Now, the most important question, where can people listen to your broadcasts? Where can they follow you on social, podcasts, etc.? Because now they need to know where they can find more Aerni work.
Of course, yeah. Blake Aerni. It's Aerni anywhere. I think it's on Twitter, it's just my name, Blake Aerni, and on Instagram, it's blake.aerni. So that's the best place to find me. But we'll be on Sports Radio 810 WHB here in Kansas City. And of course, I guess for this one, it doesn't apply, but anytime, they're listening to Apple TV and it's a home broadcast, they can switch over. I don't know if San Jose fans will want to do that when you guys come to Kansas City, but if you do, I'll be there.
We support the home radio broadcasts any way or form. Not that we don't support the Apple guys, but sure, we specifically support the radio broadcasts around here.
I love it. Well, it'll be a fun one here for Game 1.
Most definitely. Blake, thanks so much for your time, man. I'll bug you again soon, all right?
Sounds great. Can't wait.